Hi, this is Roman. Today I wanted to talk about language. And what I would like to make you aware of, well, you already know how affected you are by words. When people criticize you or say something mean about you, why, you react to it. You get your feelings hurt, you become angry. You may pretend not to react, but you do. Why is it that words have such an effect upon us? Well, because, see, these things prove, and how about food? How many of you have food problems? The whole human race has food problems. The whole human race has food problems. But part of what divides us up into different factions and different groups and so on has to do with food. And a lot of people struggle with food. Why is that? Why? You don't see chipmunks, birds, deer. You don't see them have any problem with food. They just eat. When they're not hungry, they don't eat. When they are hungry, they eat, and they eat natural food, and it works out just fine for them. They don't have problems with food. So we talked about food, about words, and about food, about language, and about food. It proves the Garden of Eden. Maybe you knew I was going there already. It's proved right before your eyes. You can see the indelible mark, imprint. Is it genetic? Is it spiritual? Is it spiritual genetic? But there's an imprint from the Garden of Eden. And the woman was involved in the fall. It wasn't her fault. She was used. But how about today? Aren't women used? Don't men use women? Where's the man that loves a woman instead of using her? There was such a man upon the earth. There are men like that. But the man I'm referring to that didn't use women was Christ. That's why they loved him. Because he loved them with a pure fatherly love, agape love. He didn't use them. So in the Garden of Eden, then you had what? You had food. You had the spoken word, language. You had the woman. And what else did you have? The failing man. Now, ladies, don't you have a problem with failing men? You resent them. They fail you, and then you resent them, and then you feel guilty for resenting them, and then you're nice to them, and then they become spoiled, and they become even bigger failures. So, all of these elements, prove that there was something in the Garden of Eden. But just knowing that is not enough. You have to actually see it in your own life. You have to see where you are failing. See it clearly and not try to deny it. Not try to duck it. Not try to make it look like it's wonderful. See, our failing. See, when a person fails, a person is supposed to live by faith. Faith, in what they know in their heart. In the wordless word within. Pure faith. And thereby, that's how your Creator communicates with you within. Wordlessly. You just know things. And the closer you remain to your intuition, the more insight you have, the more common sense you have, the more wisdom you have, and the more love you have, and the more patience you have. The more you see other people and how they can't help themselves and how they're victims of what's happened to them and how they don't even realize what they're doing, then you can have compassion. But not feeling sorry for them, but have compassion for them. And you don't hate them anymore. Because that's been your big problem. You hated people. You hated your dad for failing you, your mom for being a nag, or your boyfriend for failing you. Then you struggle with everything, and you think that resenting it and struggling with it helps. But it doesn't. You struggle with food. You struggle with the effect that people's words have on you. See? So you have to see where you fail. And you have to see it objectively. See, when we fail, we fall into the failing. See, the reason you fail is because you're not objective in the first place. See, if you stood back and looked at something objectively, calmly, neutrally, dispassionately, from the distance, you just looked at it. See, you wouldn't be a part of it. You'd be separate from it. You would see it, but you wouldn't have fallen into it. But what we do is we fall, and then we escape into the thing that we fell into. See, just the way you escape into your thoughts. See, you go out in the world, you fail. You say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you make a mistake. In a moment of unawareness, you mess something up, and then you don't want to see it, so then you escape into thought. Rationalize it, justify it, excuse it, or try to relive it and struggle with it and try to change it. And then you see how you fall into those thoughts? So it's the fall itself that's the failing. And what is the evidence of the fall? Well, the first evidence is emotion. See, when you respond to intuition, to what you know within, when you respond to your innate, God-given intuition, see, because you realize that it's from God, it's given to you by God, and you realize that that's the way. If you're going to know anything, that's the way you need to know it, because everything else you can't trust it. Who can you trust? See, you trust one person, he betrays you. You trust one product, and it betrays you. You trust something else, and everybody says it's great, then you find out it has side effects. See, there's 1,000 different religions and 1,000 different opinions about everything, and 1,000 different experts. They're all saying something different. How are you going to know? Well, you'll know intuitively. See, so if you live by faith, then you would be attached to faith. You would respond to faith, and you would be into faith as faith is into you. See, you would have a bond of faith, a rapport. See, I'm using all different words just to try to give you a sense of how you would be bonded to it, attached to what you know in your heart. And then because of that, when something else came along, you wouldn't react to it. You wouldn't respond to it. You would just see it, and you wouldn't react. Now, do you see that emotion is the evidence of failing? So what do? We laud emotions, we praise them, being in love and having passion and excitement and yelling and screaming at the ball game and all of that stuff. We talk about it as if it were a wonderful thing, when in fact it's evidence of failing. Why did they call the term falling in love is very apt, because it is a fall. It's not really what love is all about. Okay? It's the opposite. It's a fall, it's a failing. That's why women resent their men, because he fails. See, the more he needs her, the more he's and reacts to her and responds to her. In a way, she likes it because it gives her power. But in another way, she doesn't. In another way, he's failing, and she senses deep down that he's failing. See? And so she resents him for it. And he doesn't understand why. He thinks bringing her flowers and chocolate and calling her darling and what have you, he thinks that's love. See? So he doesn't understand why she's angry at him. So I began by talking about words. So I just want you to see that falling into words, see, Adam responded to the spoken word, didn't he? Through Eve came the word of the serpent. Oh yes, and behind it all was the serpent. That was the puppet master in the Garden of Eden. The other player, the other actor, the other intelligence. See? Behind the scenes, orchestrating this mess. See? Well, so what was I going to say? So I just wanted to talk about words, language. So now you see that language, that the fall into the spoken word, responding to the spoken word, when Eve, her serpent-coached tongue, talked about being ambitious, about being a god, being great. Through what? Through knowledge, through education. So how do we get education now? Through language, through words. Sitting in classrooms, listening to teachers and reading textbooks and listening to experts and reading experts. See? So those ministers of words then, they minister to you with promises. You can be great. You can have it all. You can do it all. You can be this and be that. And always with words. You noticed? Words, words, words. But you keep making the same mistake. You keep falling for the words. And if you resent the words, if you resent them for lying, eventually you sense that they're lying. They can't deliver what they're promising. Then you resent them. That's another response. It's just another response. The answer is not to respond at all. Just to observe, just to watch, to hear. They go in ear and one out the other. Okay? To fall into language. See, that's the alternative. See, the right way is the way of faith, the way of trusting what you know in your heart, always doing what you know is right in your heart, like what you knew when you were a little child. See, that's the right way. That's the way God wants us to be. He wants us to learn from Him directly. He wants us to, that way, come to know Him and to love Him. See, and to know of Him. So what's the alternative? The alternative is words, the spoken word. And when you respond to the spoken word, you fall into what? Into thoughts, into thought and imagination. See? So that's the alternative. So have you wondered why you see college kids, how they become selfish and how they have conflict? Why? What's with all the drug taking and boozing and drinking beer and partying? What's that all about? And why are they becoming selfish? See, become more and more selfish. Kids go away to college. See, when they left home, they were your loving daughter, son, or daughter. Not perfect, but, when they come back, what? Totally changed. Crude, selfish, egotistical. They think they, know it all, but they really don't. And a lot of times coming back with weird ideas. What's that all about? See? It's because study, words, language, knowledge. We're on knowledge. That's the alternative to the way of the heart, to the way of intuition. See? It's the alternative. You either trust what you know in your heart, cling to it, rely upon it, trust it, look to it, or you look to words, to knowledge. See? That's the alternative. So in and of itself, study. Now, I'm not saying that you can't read a book, but see, when I read books, I scan them. I scan books, and I don't idolize the author. I read the book, maybe there's one good idea in it, one little clue, or a couple of words, jargon, that I can then use, that I can then, through intuition, and with understanding, then use those words in a meaningful way, even as I'm using words now. See? So I scan books. Don't idolize the author. Don't get lost in it. I don't study it. I don't fixate and focus and concentrate. See? That's the and what other aspect of words and emotions? What is the phenomenon associated with words and emotions? Hypnosis. What do you think falling in love is? What do you think when people do bad things? How about when kids go out and do bad things, rotten things? Who are they following? Where did those ideas come from? They came from somewhere. They're in some kind of a trance, see, under someone's influence. Some neighborhood good-for-nothing, some gang leader, something. Words and emotions lead to hypnosis, see. And so how do they make hypnosis happen? And telling people to concentrate, focus, fixate, try, see. So if you try and if you focus and concentrate, That will lead you into hypnosis. And when you are hypnotized in a mild trance state, then you are more suggestible to what? Words. And then they lead you more, deeper. So it's like the Pied Piper of Hamelin leading you astray. And then years later you find yourself in the wrong place with the wrong people, a divorce or two, health issues, financial issues, unhappy. What went wrong? Having made mistakes, maybe with some substance problems or food problems, relationship problems. See, what went wrong? See? Well, you probably don't suspect the role of words, language. So you have to learn how to use language. It's like I use language. See, I don't get lost in it. I don't try to put people to sleep with it. I don't try to fool people and bamboozle them or lift them up to cater to their ego. See, I use words in a way that might awaken you to see, awaken you to stand back and look. Say, oh, now I see what the problem is. See? So now you see the problem, you're no longer part of the problem. See, you're either in the problem or you're separate from the problem, looking at it. And the problem with you, see, in our pride, we identify with everything that goes wrong and then we struggle with it. So you either identify with it and protect it, or you struggle with it, but struggle only involves you more deeply. See, just as concentrating does, fixating does, focusing does, struggling does also. So there in a nutshell, you see the story of the whole human race. So what you need then is something to help you get started, to stand back a little bit. Start getting a little bit of distance. See, so you don't fall head over heels. You hear the term falling head over heels in love. See, or how about Alice? Didn't she fall head over heels down the rabbit hole? See? So instead of falling so deeply, well, you have a little distance. See, so now you're not as emotional, not as affected by words. See? Stand back and look at things. And your problems too. See, you're too involved with your problems. You worry about them and struggle with them. And now you watch them. See? And an amazing thing happens. You begin to have control, a natural control. The reason you were out of control is because you were lost in you become lost in everything that you struggle with, including words, other people's words. That's why they have too much effect on you. So now you let the words go in one ear and out the other. Now you go through life less emotional. See? And now you have a little more perspective. You have perspective. And patience. Perspective and patience. Isn't that what maturing is supposed to be? Growing up and maturing. See? Because when you are mature, then you're calmer. See, you're calmer. You have more understanding. You don't get upset. You don't fall apart. You're able to manage things. You have self-control. And you do the right thing. So you have courage. And you have principle. And you have honor. Because you stand back and then you are close to the source of what is good. The source of what is right. The source of truth. Through your intuition. And you see what is right. And so you just cling to that. It's called principle. Or on the other hand, you see what's not right. Okay? You may not see what's right, but you see what's not right, and then you just don't go that way. See how simple it is? Life becomes simpler. Instead of becoming more complicated, see, when you follow this faith, way of faith, life becomes simpler. Okay? So, I think I'll make an end to this video. Because I said a lot. It's a good video. You could watch it over and over again. Maybe each time you would see something a little different or a little deeper. Maybe it could help you to wake up and start to... What do they say? Wake up and smell the coffee? That's what you do. First you got to wake up and smell the coffee. And then you can smell the roses. Okay? My name is Roland.